Hello and welcome to Gatland's 3 Big Lions Mistakes. Hi, I'm DrivingMaul. I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please do give it the old thumbs up. You can do that at any point. So I think if we were in Gatland's shoes, we all would have done things differently. And that's partly because of where we're from and also partly because of our own kind of ideas and thoughts around all that. And also because we're not as experienced as him, let's be honest, most of us. But I think there are 3 things that he's really got wrong on this tour. There has been a lot of talk about the schedule of this tour, and I understand that's not entirely his doing, but he was the head coach last time around to Australia, and he made recommendations for what the Lions should do for this tour, for this schedule. And I think actually he's got that one right. I think they did need to play full-strength Super Rugby sides and not weakened sides like they did in Australia to get the standard they needed for the Test matches. So I don't think he got that one wrong, even though there's been a lot of criticism about that. There's also been a lot of criticism about favouritism towards the Welsh players and also Welsh coaches. And as has been said by many people, if you have a national coach, he is going to have favouritisms because he just knows those players better. It's not necessarily a conscious thing, or it's just he has more knowledge of them. So again, I don't think he can be blamed for that. So I think anybody would have that kind of issue. A lot of people have had criticism of Rob Howley being the attack coach, saying Schmidt or Townsend Gregor Townsend should have been brought in for that role. Obviously, Gregor was offered it as an assistant role, and he turned that down. And I think, in retrospect, I think Howley's done a decent job with the amount of time he's had with the team. So, again, I don't think he got that one particularly wrong. And also, the working relationship they have means they get up to speed quicker. And the final one that I think he's taken some flack on, that I think he has done right, is the handling of the media. He's taken some flack about being prickly, but that's just the way he is, and he's not going to change that overnight, or just for the New Zealand press, or for this tour. So, on the whole, I think he's done a lot of things right, is basically what I'm saying, but I do think there are three areas where he has actually got it wrong. First up is the squad balance. I think replacing Billy with Haskell changed the balance of the players he had available in the back row, and meant that CJ Standers had to place 8 and has not been able to stake his claim for 6. So this isn't anything against Haskell himself. It's against it's about the position he plays. I think that in the back row we just don't have enough 8s there, which has basically meant that CJ Standers not being able to stake his claim for the Test side. Now I know there's been the injury to Moriarty, and that caused that didn't help there. But both Moriarty and CJ Stander are both 6-8s rather than pure 8s, and I think we could have done with another pure 8 in the squad. Also, I think we brought too many centres along, having Teo, Daly, Henshaw, Payne, Davies, and JJ. We had 6 centres for 2 positions. In the locks, where you always have someone on the bench, we had 5 players for 2 positions. And if we look at the games of the Chiefs and the first Test, the only player that was in the original tour squad that wasn't either injured, that was available, that didn't play, was JJ as a centre. So I think he had too many centres there and should have brought 5 along rather than the full 6, and perhaps used that to bolster the second row with one more player, as Alwyn Jones had to back up. We always knew someone would have to back up between these games. And so it's Alwyn Jones this time. It's going to be Cruz unless he drops out of the 23 for the matchday squad going into the second Test. Also, I think we had too many outside backs as well. Out there, we had Seymour, Hogg, Nowell, Watson, Halfpenny, North, and I'm sure I've gone and forgotten somebody in there as well. And then we've had Daly playing on the wing. We've had Payne playing at fullback. Yes, Hogg got injured, but having, I think it was 7, I don't even know anybody's name, 6 off the top of my head, for that role. Again, I think between centres and outside backs, we had 1 or 2 too many players in that. So I think he got the squad balance slightly wrong. The second thing I think he's got wrong is what some people are calling the New Zealand 6, or whatever it is the players he's called up for the Chiefs and for the Hurricanes game to fill the bench. I think he was right to call these players up. I think the squad needed a few more players for those 2 games and to protect the Test side from being for their recovery, and also for stopping them from getting injured. If you read my piece about a week in the life of a player, you'll see that a lot of the week is spent on recovery. And if you have them either training for or being in a match day squad, they can't spend the same time out as recovery, and they won't be ready or as ready as they could be for the Test match. So I think he did need the extra bodies. I do think he was right to get players who are in the right time zones. I think, as we saw with the opening game, you can't fly across that many time zones and play within a couple of days. And that's what we saw against New Zealand Barbarians. I know why he flew out as one group and late, because he wanted to have a united squad. And I think, again, that's another thing I think he got right, rather than flying out players ahead of time to play in that game who weren't playing in the final and splitting the squad from a travel point of view. But so I think he was right getting players who were geographically convenient. But I do think the Irish players in Japan were also geographically convenient, and I think he got the wrong players. WP, Nell, Gray were both up for selection initially and could have come in. I'm sure there are Irish players who could have come in. The players he brought in just weren't the next level up. Now, I think, I know that I've heard comments that it would be more disruptive to the squad having extra competition, but these guys are all highly competitive. They're used to competition. The competition drives most of them. So I don't think that would have been that much of a problem. And Finn Russell, for example, is the kind of player that should have been called up. It's mainly the forwards that I feel he made the mistake. He's then compounded that error by listening to all the feedback and not using those players off the bench. The only players that have come in out of those 6 that have played have been ones that have come on for HIA or blood bin replacements, and then they've gone back off again. They haven't come on as proper replacements. And that does 2 things. One, any player who is played in that Chiefs game or played in the, last night's Hurricanes game are having to play more minutes. So if they have played themselves into the Test Match 23 from a form perspective, they may not be fit enough to do so. To back again, it's about backing up and the recovery. Dan Biggar, for example, should he have done 60 minutes rather than the full 80, or even less, if you were going to play him in the match day 23, or Jack Nowell, or one of these other players. So there are players who have put their hands up, but are going to find it harder, like Henderson in the second row, to get in the match day squad and to recover in time to play for it. So I think A, he called up the wrong people, and B, he then should have used them and stuck to his guns as to why they were there. They were there to protect people for the match day squad. Yes, last night they should have won that game, but the players got too tired. We didn't have the injection off the bench that the Hurricanes had, and so they ran out. They ran out of steam, ran out of energy towards the end of the game. It's one of the things that we brought up during that call, during my live post-match discussion on YouTube with the 1014 and the Maul Over podcast. So, and then Gatland came out afterwards to say that in response to the criticism, he decided he would only use them if absolutely necessary. And I think that's wrong. They're here to win the Test matches. They need to protect as many of the Test match players as possible. Having a win last night would have helped momentum. It's not the biggest thing in the world. Last night didn't matter. At the end of the day, what matters is Saturday. They have to win on Saturday. So if any of the players who wanted to play from that squad for Saturday, he should have brought players on to protect them. The final one, the third thing that I think he's gone and got wrong, is around concussion. Let's be honest, Wales doesn't have the best record under his tutelage about concussion with the way that George North has been handled. And I think we've seen that again on this tour. Dan Biggar went off and failed a HIA against the Blues, and then backed up 6 days later and played in the Highlanders game, I think it was. And that is just if you think for non-professional players, they have to take 14 days off totally before starting the return to play protocols. A professional player's head is just the same as or brain is the same as a non-professional player's brain in that kind of respect. And I think he was rushed back too quickly. He's then gone on to have HIAs in both the Chiefs game and the Hurricanes game. Now he's passed those, but a failed and 3 HIAs in 4 games. That is a lot, and I do think it's been sending out the wrong message for around head injuries and how they should be handled. So, in recap, there are three things he's got wrong. I think he got the squad balance wrong, both in replacement of Billy Vunipola with a 6, and also too many centres and outside backs and not enough, and perhaps an extra lock. I think he called up the wrong people and hasn't used them properly to save the test match players, and I think he hasn't handled head injuries and concussion as well as it could have been done. Those, I think, are the 3 big mistakes that Gatland's made on this tour. As I say, he's done an awful lot right, and I think on the whole the tour has been positive, but there have been those issues. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please give it the old thumbs up on YouTube or share it if you're watching on Twitter. Don't forget also to sign up for my newsletter, link above on Twitter, link down below on YouTube. I will be back tomorrow with my All Blacks versus Lions second test preview, and don't forget, after the second test I will be doing a live post-match reaction. I've got Russ from the Maul Over podcast, and I'll have another special guest from New Zealand. So thank you very much everybody for joining me, and I will catch you tomorrow.